As a child, I was fascinated by the nativity set my mom set out every year at Christmas. I eventually learned that my mom glazed each porcelain figure herself. When I got older, I began helping my mom set up the nativity, trying my hardest to be creative and unique each year. I didn't want to look at the same boring setup every Christmas. Fast forward to my adult years, and I missed setting up this scene and imagining the story of each person who got to be a witness to the miracle of Emmanuel, God with us. Last year, my sister bought me this nativity set for Christmas. It is a second-hand set that has hopefully been loved and cherished by a family before becoming a part of mine. Today, I want to share about the shepherds. We are told the story of the shepherds in Luke chapter 2. In the first 7 verses of chapter 2, Luke describes the birth of Jesus. Starting in the very next verse, Luke describes for 13 verses how God chose to announce the birth of his son to all of creation. Many Jews living under oppressive Roman rule for many years were waiting for a savior to come and deliver them from Caesar and foreign rule. They probably expected a very different birth announcement in their minds. God, however, chose to send his messengers, angels, to shepherds watching their flocks in a field. God didn't announce the birth of Jesus, God made flesh, in any fancy or royal fashion, as perhaps many Jews at the time were expecting. The Messiah, the Savior of the world, was first announced to humans who had to sleep in the fields with their animals in order to keep and protect them. As you can imagine, this wasn't a glamorous job. They most likely smelled and weren't dressed in fresh, clean clothes. Because of this, they were generally considered unclean and treated as outsiders by their community. In a religious system where people had to be considered physically clean and offered sacrifices to become spiritually clean, God chose the shepherds, the physically unclean, to announce this most amazing news. In Luke, the angels say, "A Savior has been born to you." How personal and inclusive. What must the shepherds have thought, knowing they were included? As soon as the angels left, the shepherds, we are told, decided to go and see for themselves what the angels announced. Shepherds, who stay in fields overnight to keep watch and protect their flocks, left their animals, their livelihood, to go and see for themselves this miracle and good news for all. Once the shepherds saw Jesus lying in the manger, they started to spread word about what they had been told about this baby. Clearly, this was no ordinary baby. Messengers of God appearing in the night sky to lowly shepherds, telling them where to find a savior that has come for them. This was news worth sharing. Leaving their flocks behind, the shepherds couldn't help but tell others about their experience. How have you encountered and experienced God? God doesn't have to send angels in the sky above to speak to us and remind us that, like the shepherds, we too are loved by God, worthy to be called his beloved, and have access to him through the birth, death, and resurrection of his son, Jesus.